Yeah, thank you everyone. I have to start by saying I had a chance to go first. Now I'm regretting I should have gone first because I don't know how I'm going to top that. That was a great presentation, but I'm going to try my best to at least get to half of what she did. Yeah. So as you probably know my name already, I'm Christian Munyika. Probably none of you will be able to say my surname, so just stay to Christian, that's fine with me. So I will speak to you today about React custom hooks. This is very interesting subject. I hope you learn a thing or two. By show of hands, how many people here still write their component using classes? Great. So everyone knows what a hook is, right? We can assume everyone knows what a hook is. They've been around like for 6 years, since 2018, somewhere there. So this is my table of content. I'll just define what a hook is because you can't really explain what a custom hook is without first explaining a hook built-in. Then I'll show you some built-in hook which you probably know all about. Then I'll tell you why I use hooks in general, and then I'll show you a small demo of custom hooks. I have about 3 demos. 2 are coming directly from the official React docs, and then there's one that I put together, and hopefully it will be as good as the one I got from the documentation. So I have about 10 slides. It's not a very long presentation, don't worry. So yeah, let's get started. So, what's a hook? So we'll probably all remember that Dan Abramov presentation when he introduced the hook. Everyone was just blown away. So it's basically a function that there's some rules to it. It's not just a simple function. There are some rules to it that makes it a hook. Things that we'll get into the details just in a second. So if I can read, it's a special function introduced in React 16.8 that allows you to hook into. So that really, if you've used class component before, you'll remember your lifecycle method, like component did mount, component did update, component did will amount, things like that. So with hooks, you will be able to hook into those lifecycle method without writing classes, and you also be able to use states without having to write a constructor, define your say there, bind your method. People always forget to bind them. They click button and it's not working. So hooks will solve all those problems. And then some built-in hooks, use state. So as I was saying, that will allow you to use stating a functional component without having to write classes, of course. So if you want to use state into your component, all you have to do is use that magical function called use state from React, and this is how you define it. So it's as simple as count, set count. So count will be your variable, whatever, when it changes, then your component gets re-rendered, and the set count there is a function that you call every time you want to update that count. So say you have a button that increments your counter every time you click it, then you just call set count with the new value, and then by some magic, the count variable will be updated and your component re-rendered. Then you have use effects. So that's the one that allows you, I think it's a combination of the 3 lifecycle method that I just talked about now. Component did mount, component did update, and component will amount. So that's all that those methods are combined into this one function over here. How nice. And then so that's how you define it, use effect, and then your effect logics and your dependencies. So that's just an array. I think if you don't have any dependencies, you just want to run your effect one time, then you just have an empty array. If you want which is a better idea, your effect to run indefinitely, then you'd have no array at all, you just leave it empty. Well, if you have like a clock or something like that, that's a very bad idea. Or if you had, any state, that any state variable that you use within your hook must be part of your dependencies, and there are like ESLint rules that will allow you to do that. And then we have use memo. So basically that will allow you to avoid re-rendering components. So if your props or your state hasn't changed, and say you have like a parent component with your children component, and nothing in the children component has changed in terms of prop or state. So if the parent component re-renders, you don't have to re-render the children if their own props or state has not changed. Then you would use memo, because React by some magic will remember that your state of props for this very specific component has not changed, then I do not have to re-render that component. And let's try to hide that.
Excellent.
So that's how you would define it. So you would have your, well, I know you can read it. So compute expensive value is just a function you define somewhere. It takes A and B. So, and then you still have your dependency variable as well. So those two things, when they change, then that function will be recalculated again. So if A and B has not changed, then there's no need to call compute expensive value again. So that's all that function does. And then why should you use hooks? They really simplify your code. So if you remember from the old classes, if you need state, you need to go a constructor, define a state object into that, and define the values that you want, and then bind your event handlers and all that. So there's just like a lot of boilerplate before you can use, you can make your component use reactive by using state. So, and all these like component did mount and all that. So if you can do all these into one place, so that's like very good and very nice. So it simplifies your code by taking away all the boilerplate, and it improve your reusability, because it's like you can define one function and reuse it. Well, it technically you can use it in classes as well, but it's just way better using hooks. And I have and number 3, enhanced readability. Of course, if you extract things into smaller component, then your component will be better and readable, so, and smaller. That's where the whole readability comes into play. And then rules of hooks. So as if you remember, by definition, we said it's just a function or a spatial function, but those spatial functions, they have some rules, and those rules are actually enforced. So they must be called at the top level. So what this means is that you cannot call a hook into a condition like a if statement, into a loop, or anything like that. They have to be at the top level of your component or your custom hook, as we'll see. For some reason, React uses the exact order the hooks are rendered in. So if you render your component first and then some condition, and you conditionally not render a hook in the next render, React will have problem keeping track of your state, and they cannot guarantee it. So that's why they enforce you to always call them on in the same order. Okay, so you cannot use hooks from anywhere else other than a component, and we know a component is just a function anyway, but it must start with a capital letter. So if it's not starting with a capital letter, or you're not starting with, well, I'm going ahead of myself here, so it must start with a capital letter, so that's what makes it a component. So if you're using it outside of a component, then React will complain. So you must use it into a component, a functional component to be exact, not into your class component. Wow, dependency list. So I've already talked about the dependencies. If you have them, you must always define them. Unless you don't, you have something that maybe you have a component that just like fetches a list somewhere and then displays it, and that doesn't really change. Then you just pass it an empty array, and then it will not re-render. So you must always make sure that you have it, you define a dependency list, because if you don't define it, or you define things that frequently change, then you're going to have unnecessary re-renders, and that may lead to performance issues. So very important to keep in mind when working specifically with use effects. Yes, so then with custom hooks, they must follow all the other rules, and they must start with the use keyword. So that's the takeaway here. If you want to define your own custom hook, it must start with the keyword use. That's how React knows that, oh, this is a custom hook, you're defining it, then React can enforce all the other rules of coding, hooks at the top level and all that. So you start with use and then a capital letter, whatever, just like use state, use effect, and use something else. Right, now let's get into why we're here, talking about custom hooks. So basically, custom hooks is just your own hooks that you're defining. You follow, of course, the rules that we've just defined now. The one misconception that I had first when I came across this was that you're sharing your state. That's not what you're doing here, you're sharing your stateful logic. So this will make sense when we go into the demo. I have some code, so I will show you exactly what that means. So you're not sharing, because you have one hook that you're using into multiple components. So you're not sharing one state object. In each component where you use that hook, it's actually a separate state. It can update independently. So you're just sharing that logic, you're extracting it and putting it somewhere where you can reuse it. So that's why I underline stateful logic over there, very important. So what makes a function a custom hook? Because it's just a function. Of course, when you started by the keyword use, and then you must use other hooks into it. Because basically you want either to manage state or effects into that. So if it's just a function, even if it's starting with use and then you're not really using the built-in hooks like use state or use effect, it's not really a custom hook because you're not doing anything there, it's just a function. Yes, so I think we've already maybe talked about this when we talked about hooks in general. So they keep your component clean by extracting exact effects and state out. You just use it wherever you need it. So that keeps your component small and focused to what they actually do. Demo time. So demos always don't work. So hopefully this will work. So I have 3 demos, 2 directly from the official documentation, and then I have my own that I will show you a little bit specific. So let's get into it. So I'll show you, let's say do this. Better?
Yes.
All right. Good. So let's collapse that. So I have 2 components. Maybe we should start by looking at those components. So these are 2 separate components, as you can see. My design there, very great. So forgive me for that. Actually, I made it better. If you look at the official documentation, it's worse than this. So
I saw the documentation. I can agree with you.
yeah, so it's actually made it better. So these are 2 separate components. You can see online that's a status component, and then you have a button which is defined into another component. They both checking your browser to see if you're online, and then if you are, then it allows you to click that button and just display an alert there, and then tells you you're actually online. And let's put the browser offline and see what happens. Inspect, let's go to network, throttling. So now I'm offline. So it's just like two components that tells you, checks your browser, are you online or not, and then displays that. So if we look at the code of how that works, it's here. So you have used effect, you render your button component, and your effect runs. There's that function, you add your event listeners on line 13, right over here. You add your, so you're listening on online, and then you call that function, then that sets it to true, you go offline, that sets it to false. So that's it. And this is the button component. This is a status component, and it's exactly the same code. Nothing changes, because you still want to know whether you're online or not, so you're using exactly the same component. And unfortunately, React does not give us a hook called is a user online. So you have to define it yourself, which is exactly what I did by looking at the documentation. And I'll just put the mic down and use that hook and see how this component will look. So
Code simplified.
yeah, so just remember, trust me, I ran this like 15 times just to make sure it actually works. So keeping my fingers crossed here. Let's go back and put our browser on. So that works. Hey, good. Thank you. Yeah. And let's go offline. There we are offline. Now, how did that happen?
Can you refresh the page? Just curious.
Yes, I think we'll say offline.
Yeah, you'll have to
No,
go
it
back
is.
online, just refresh the page. Yeah, it seems to be working.
Yep. So let's go look at the code. So that's the use online hook, which is basically the same thing that this is exactly the same thing I had in the two component. Exactly the same thing. There it is. You're still using your window, adding your listener, removing it. It's exactly the same thing I had in the two components. I just extracted it, and now there is one hook that dispenses the is online state to all components that need it. So as you can see, now I have this one thing. I can have thousands of components. They need to know if a user is online. This is all they have to do. They don't have to do add event listeners and this and that. I am a component. I just need to know if the user is online. Give me a hook, and then I'll do that. So this is what that does. And to the point that I made in the sliders, you're not sharing the state, you are really sharing the logic. So we can look at that, I think, if we go to component. Well, component is not working. Right. Okay, I have a better example anyway. I'll use that and we'll look at it. So this is one demo. Actually, the one coming up is the one where I will show the proof that you're not sharing the state, actually just the logic. And for that, I'll have to, where am I here? Somewhere. I haven't committed changes. Probably have to slash S. And then let's see. So yeah, so we've now added another component, Mary Poppins. Very nice there. You can now say hi to Mary Poppins. I think that's it works. Yeah, hi Mary Poppins. So now here, let's look at that. Where is the component? So it's the save button. I've just modified it and added 2 input fields and that. So as you can see there on line 7 and 8, I'm defining 2 use states, and then a little bit further down, I have 2 event handlers for first name change and last name change. And to me, with the knowledge or understanding of custom hooks that I have, I see repetition there. It's like, can I have a hook that will help me avoid repeating myself? Yes, I can. So how do I do that? First, we didn't do the demo actually. So these are very separate states. As you can see, you have your first name, which updates independently of your last name. Lucia, let's try that and see if that actually works. So that works. So, and now we have proved that these are updating independently. We'll go and use the same hook, and when we update, if these two were sharing the same state, updating one input field should be updating the other one. But to prove that they're not the same object, they will be updating independently as they are now with the 2 separate use statements. So we go over here. Let's put my mic down for a minute. Where are we? Okay. So, for those that don't like spread, this is exactly the same thing. Or instead of spreading as in the, line 21, where I'm spreading first name props, which will basically give you your value and your own change, you can do it as in line 25. But I think we would all agree that line 21 looks better. But just in case you were wondering where's the magic? Because when I first looked at the documentation, I needed a second look to actually understand it. So If you like me, then first you need that your value, that your on change. If you look at line 21, these are exactly the same. And this should still work. So here we are. So these are two separate states, even though they're using the same hook. We're not sharing anything here other than the definition of the hook itself. So yeah, any questions so far before we go into a big demo? No questions. Okay, good. Okay. So I just have a list of stores here. These are the list of all those stores. You can go into a store and see the inventory for that store. You have buttons there, sell some shoes. And then, that maybe happens too fast. It's using GraphQL and Socket.io, so that's not the topic of the discussion, but it's updating as automatically as you clicking that button, so you don't need to refresh your page. I'm on 427. Say I sell 2 shoes, and then that goes to 425, and that's not the only component. So you also have this other component. If you can, that updated 8 seconds ago. So how does this work? So I have 2 components, one that you're looking at just now, and this one. So what do these need? You have your shoe inventory, whatever it is, and when you sell some shoe, that inventory changes, you need to show it on this page and on the inventory. So say inventory staff are watching this, you see how shoes are being sold, how they're updating and all that. So they will be looking at this page, and your users will be making purchases through the other component. So they will be able to see it over here. So you can already tell that when I'm updating this inventory over here, the other component will need to get the updated value as well. So you can imagine there's something in this, some shared values there, which the 2 components, some state or some logic that the 2 components are sharing. So warning, those are some big components. Don't hate me, it's for the demo purposes. So I'll get into that. So this is the ugly version. Let's here like that. What do we have? So as I said, it's using GraphQL. We don't have to get into that, but there's that use query, which it's another hook, but that's provided by Apollo. That they use the GraphQL definition, so it's basically like a library that you use to interact with your GraphQL service, but that's not the purpose of this. So I'm just using that hook, passing it a query. It goes to my server, gets the shoes, brings them to me. That's it. So that's what's happening on line 20. Then I have my shoes set over there, and when the shoes are available, I'm just setting that. So that is on initially when you load your page, you see the shoes, that's what does it. And then here's what the update is happening. So it's on this use effect. I have this event there, so that's the event the server is emitting. When you sell the shoes, the server validates everything is fine, and then it emits that event, and through WebSocket, your client is listening and will react to that. That's how it's updating your application without you having to refresh the page. So that's the magic of WebSocket. But basically what's happening is that this is the function that I want to handle. More like when we did the browser online and all that, we're still passing it a function that will update, change the state of online and offline. So that's basically the same concept here. So that's the function that will be handle cell completed. That's the function that will be executed when the server or the client, when the server emits an event and the client actually picks it up. So it will execute that function, and here's how that function is defined. So I know that my server will emit that event and send the updated shoe. So that's what I'm getting here, and then I already have my list of previous shoes, so I'm just running through that. I have this help function. It takes a previous shoe and the updated shoe, compares them. If they match, then creating a new object, React says do not mutate your object directly, so you spread through them, which effectively creates a new object, and then there's some mismatches in my dead formats, but who hasn't had a problem with dead formats? Someone is first at some point. So that's not the point. So you find the updated shoes, you create a new object, change the updated it. That's what is picked up and shows you how long ago that update happened. Or if it's not matched, you just return the same shoe. That's what happened here. So I know there's those two components, stock inventory and stock monitor, stock inventory, they have the same logic. Exactly, they need to know when a shoe inventory changes and all that. So that's what's happening in the first part. There's actually something that I did not show. So when I'm here, you will see I have 14 shoes are running low in inventory, if you can see that. So you need it to be at least 150. If you lower than that, you have that red there, danger. So you can go and request. So basically what this does, it allows you to request inventory from another store of the same type. So you can go and, well, actually let's look at that. So it's right here, Beodoa, so it's on 100. Let's find it. So I can cancel that. This is on Aldoburn. Where's Aldoburn? There. So it's right here on line 7. I will go and request some stock. Let's request about, it's on 100 now. Let's go and request maybe 51. From which store? That store. And I update. Now that's the first line. And over here, it also updated. So whatever you do in one component affects the other component as well. So, right. So what I just showed you, the function we're looking at now, that's when you're selling the shoes. There's another event. Of course, this is now your cleanup. So this is if you were using class component, you'll do this in your component will amount. So you're doing your cleanups. So that's what's happening on whatever you return from your effects. But I'm sure everyone knows that. So then we have another use effect, handle inventory requests. So that's the one responsible for allowing a store to request inventory from another one, and then it will also update the inventory from the store. So it's exactly the same thing as the other one, but the only difference that this is actually updating two shoes, two stores, or two shoes in two stores. So it's updating the one that you requested from and the one that the stock is going into. So those are two things changing. So that's where we are. So having explained this, it's exactly the one that is on the other component as well. So we can just go and look at how using hook would allow us to extract this logic into a separate function that we can use everywhere we need that. Let's see if this still works. Now, let's do that. Oh, that still works. And over here, that was updated. So now we have just, and I did this intentionally. I've just like had branches where you just check out, but I just wanted to show you how much code I had to delete from the two components to have it just like, that's all this needs. It needs a list of shoes, and that's it. How the shoes update and all that, this component is not really interested into that. And if I can show you how that hook is defined. So it's just here. So it's basically just everything that we looked at that I've already explained, just extracted and shared between the two components. So this really shows you how clean these two components are now, because that's all it needs, and you still get your two component, your application still behaves the same way as having that logic into the two components. Thank you. That will be it.
Merci, Christian.
Merci.
Any questions? Des questions?
Oh, je parle aussi français.
J'ai un microphone, Rachel. Oh. Turn it on.
Thank you.
In the previous presentation, we also talked about micro frontends. I'm wondering if you can change a component in another micro frontend with custom hooks.
No, because this is part of a project, and this is shared in the project. And micro frontends are about going beyond the project level. It's going, how could we call that? A meta project?
Yeah, I don't really know, because you can have a hook in a library and you can use it in your application.
Yeah, but it's not about, reusing at the custom hook level. It's about reusing at the remote level. That's
You
just
can use it as a remote level and get it from the library.
yeah.
So if you save your hooks in a library and use it in multiple micro frontends.
It won't share, it won't share the same data, but you can use the logic of your hook in several applications.
So you're reusing at the remote level instead of reusing at the custom hook level.
I mean, they don't work together through the application, but you can use the same logic in multiple
Yeah.
applications.
So it's just another way of reusing. You can reuse custom hooks, and you can reuse remotes. They're not the same technology, but they have the same goals.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just a small implementation detail, because you have use shoes with no parameters in one, and use shoes with, I think it's the API.
Yes.
Wait.
If you're looking at your stock monitor, which is the component of the table, you don't need, you're watching your stock for all your stores, so you don't have to pass it a store key. But when you're selling the shoes and that the inventory that you're looking at is for a specific store, that's why you're passing the ID for that store.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No. I think this is going to be the wrap. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
Another round of applause.
So feel free to get in touch, because that's my GitHub over there, and that's my email. So yeah.
And your slides will be available soon, I guess. You're going to
Yes.
You're going to be
And the
available on the
code,
website.
I just need to clean up a little bit before I push it up. So maybe I'll join the Discord and I'll share the GitHub link. Then you can get the code and play with it, and however you want. It's free.
Wonderful. Thank you.